not just an old sermon of mine, it's an old sermon. I first preached this sermon a long time ago, and I stole it from N.B. Hardeman in N.B. Hardeman's Tabernacle Sermons. And I suggest to anybody who wants to preach and occasionally steal sermons that you really ought to get N.B. Hardeman's Tabernacle Sermons. They're really good. And you'll do well preaching those. But I discovered also that N.B. Hardeman stole that sermon himself, because I found it in a book of sermons by J.W. McGarvey, maybe 75 years before N.B. Hardeman. And I thought, well, I found the originator of this sermon, but then I got to looking more into a fellow that I like who wrote in the 1600s, and lo and behold, he had the same sermon. So this is an old sermon, but it's a good sermon, and I enjoy preaching it, and it deals with, I think, a fundamental sort of truth that we need to kind of grasp and hang on to. The Lord tries to warn us about the danger of believing a lie. We'd like to sort of ignore that, try to think that, well, people who lie to us, it's bad for them to lie, but the Lord surely won't hold us guilty of believing a lie. But you need to look a little bit more closely at the scriptures and raise your head up out of the sand and look around you, and perhaps you would learn a little bit more about this. Let's look at a passage to begin with in 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. It says, "For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." The danger of believing a lie. And so we begin by asking this question: does it make a difference what a man believes, so long as he believes it sincerely? Sincerely. I've been told this information. I sincerely believe it. I have in one way or another based my life on it, my decisions on it. Does it matter what I believe? I'm a sincere guy. I'm a nice guy. Well, it doesn't work in investment. You know, you all put your money back a few years ago in various investments that were backed by home loans and mortgages. And we were just sure that, boy, that's the most secure thing imaginable. You know, they're not inventing any more land. That land is valuable and these houses are valuable. How did that work out for you? Goodness gracious. That whole banking thing collapsed. The mortgage industry collapsed. And people lost billions of dollars on it. You know, there was a fellow in New York who had a company where he would guarantee you 20, 30% interest. So a lot of wealthy people invested with him. Turned out what the 30% interest was you'd invest with him and you'd get some money. The money you got was from his next investor. He just cycled that around. Now, in case you hadn't figured it out, that's called a pyramid scheme. And eventually you run out of investors. And Bernie Madoff took billions of dollars of the public's money with him. But they all believed him. He was an honest guy, they thought. And they sincerely believed him. Didn't bring their money back. That was gone. Well, you know, in medicine, you ever have a bad doctor? You know, the doctor's nice, a long time, smiles nice. tells you good stories. I always look for a fat doctor myself so that he won't fuss at me too much. But once in a while, they miss the diagnosis. And they tell you, oh, you're fine. And after a while, you realize, I'm not fine, I'm sick. Why is my doctor telling me this? And you go to maybe you get a second opinion. They say, man alive, I'm glad you came here. My son went to the doctor one time. He had a terrible cold and a cough and pain in his back. Went to the doctor, who's a nice lady. I like her. She's still my doctor. But she said, oh man, you've got shingles. Shingles? Doesn't feel like shingles. Doesn't seem like shingles. She said, nothing you can do about that, sorry. After a while, he kept being sick and he went to another doctor. The second doctor said, lo and behold, you got pneumonia. You need to take some medicine for pneumonia. And it was pneumonia. That first doctor was dead wrong. She was nice. She's really nice. She's got 3 sweet kids. And she doesn't fuss at me too much when I go. But the fact that you sincerely believe somebody doesn't make it so. They may not even know they're telling you an untruth. It may have just cycled through for a period of time. But the fact that you believed a lie doesn't make it so. What about our military? If our military generals and admirals make a decision based on false information, will that have any bad effects? We wind up bombing people and wiping out 100 civilians because somebody missed the coordinates, gave the wrong information, was wrong about it. Believing a lie never works in any of these things. It never works. And yet somehow in religion, we've convinced ourselves that as long as I'm sincere in what I believe, there's no bad consequences. The Lord warned, he said, if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into the ditch. I used to preach to a congregation where there were 2 blind people. They loved that verse. They knew about that verse because they realized, they were married to one another, that they couldn't be of any help whatsoever getting through town because neither one of them knew when the light was green or red or when it said walk or don't walk. They had to get a little help on those scores. But so many religious people think, well, if the blind has given me incorrect advice, as long as I believe it sincerely, I won't walk off that cliff. But there's a good Old Testament example I want you to look at. And we'll read it and study it, and perhaps maybe you'll see the point and the danger. It's in 1 Kings 13, and we'll read it. Behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord unto Bethel. This was after the division in the kingdom. Rehoboam was the descendant of Solomon. Jeroboam, maybe a distant relative, maybe not, was a noble man. Rehoboam was an idiot. And so Rehoboam kept the tribe of Judah, and Jeroboam took 10 other tribes with him. And they rebelled, set up an altar in the city of Bethel and one in Dan. They ignored God's temple in Jerusalem. It says, Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And he cried against the altar and the word of the Lord and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord. Behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name. And upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee. And men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. Now, can you imagine? Here's a man of God out of Judah who walks over to Bethel. Well, he rode over to Bethel on an animal. And here, without an army at his back, he walks up to Jeroboam as he was offering on the altar and says, God is going to arrange things. There's a man coming along after us, Josiah, who is going to offer these priests that you've got serving here, he's going to burn their bones on this altar. Whew. Whew. Can you imagine the courage of a man like that? That guy was something else. He says, and he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign which the Lord hath spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. And it came to pass, when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of God, which had cried against the altar in Bethel, that he put forth his hand from the altar, saying, lay hold on him. Things got serious. He didn't really believe in freedom of religion right then. And his hand, which he put forth against him, dried up, so that he couldn't pull it again into him. It was stuck. It was stuck. So there he sits, stuck. And the man of God out there, who's probably now surrounded by guards, about to be killed for what he's done. Can you imagine that scene? Can you imagine the courage of that man of God? The altar also was rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. And the king answered and said unto the man of God, entreat now the face of the Lord thy God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored me again. The man of God besought the Lord, and the king's hand was restored him again, and became as it was before. What a man! What a prophet! You know, the Bible doesn't even name this fellow. But what a man he was, to have the courage to walk up to Bethel. You know, we brag on Jonah because he finally had the courage to go to Nineveh. We brag on Elijah and Elisha because of the courage they had there on Mount Carmel in one instance, and in other instances in their life. This man was the same sort of man, wasn't he? He was an exemplary servant of God. The king said unto the man of God, come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I'll give thee a reward. All right. You know, when I first moved here, years and years ago, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a dime to my name, hardly. And every now and then, one of the brethren here would ask us out to eat. Now, I had been in a church before of people who were kind of cheap. They'd ask me out to eat and have to pay for my own meal. That was kind of sad because I didn't have the money. But I was trying to be polite, hospitable, and friendly. But every now and then, people would ask me out to eat in the church here, and they paid. It was wonderful. I loved it. It was terrific. You know, you kind of looked around expectantly. This was when our first move. You looked around expectantly after church. Who's going to ask us out today and pay for the meal? Yahoo! No more baloney. Can you imagine what kind of a meal this would have been? The king invited him out. He said, come on over and eat, and I'll give you a reward to boot. It would have been a king's meal with a reward behind it. And the man of God said unto the king, If thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee. Neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. Not even a glass of water? For so was it charged me by the word of the Lord, saying, Eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest. My goodness, what a man. The king offered him a meal and a reward. And he says, No, God told me not to. I'm going home. What a man. So he went another way and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel. And his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel, the words which he had spoken unto the king. Then they told also to their father. Their father said unto them, Which way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his son, Saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon. Went after the man of God, found him sitting under an oak. He was tired. And he said unto him, Art thou the man of God that camest from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, Come home with me and eat bread. This time that man had to be hungry, thirsty. He said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee. Neither will I eat bread nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, Thou shalt eat no bread nor drink water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest. What a man. He was sticking by his guns. He had to be hungry and thirsty by now. And this was another prophet, for goodness sakes. He said unto him, I am a prophet also as thou art. And an angel spake unto me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. Lied. You ever wonder what God does to liars? You know the Bible tells us what the Lord does to liars. Over there in Revelation, he says all liars will have their part in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. The Bible tells us over and over again what's going to happen to liars. What do you suppose happens to folks who believe liars? So he went back with him. He withstood the king. He withstood this man's first entreaty. But when the man lied to him, he went back with him. And did eat bread in his house, and drank water. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came unto the prophet that brought him back, the old man. The Lord did speak through him. He cried unto the man of God that came from Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, For as much as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of the Lord, and hast not kept the commandment which the Lord thy God commanded thee, but camest back and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place of the which the Lord did say to thee, Eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers. He said, You're going to die on the way back. And it came to pass, after he'd eaten bread and after he had drunk, that he saddled for him the ass, that is, for the prophet whom he had brought back. Maybe he didn't have an ass to begin with, but he gave him his own animal. When he was gone, a lion met him by the way. You know, it's fun to go see the lion at the zoo, isn't it? That old feller in there, big old cat. You got those bars protecting you, you know, and he can't get out. You kind of make faces at him and think how brave you are. But you know, it'd be a whole different thing to meet one out in the open, wouldn't it? One who says, I'm hungry. you look like food. The lion met him by the way and slew him. And his carcass was cast in the way, and the ass stood by it. The lion also stood by the carcass. He didn't eat him. Didn't kill the donkey, which would have been good food too. He just sat there. Behold, men passed by and saw the carcass cast in the way, and the lion by the carcass, and they came and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. When the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, It is the man of God, who was disobedient to the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord hath delivered him unto the lion, which hath torn him and slain him, according to the word of God, which he spake unto him. He spake to his son, saying, Saddle me the ass, and they saddled him, and he went and found his carcass cast in the way. The ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the ass. The Lord was letting us know that this wasn't just an accidental situation with this lion. The prophet took up the carcass of the man of God and laid it upon the ass and brought it back. And the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him. He laid his carcass in his own grave, and they mourned over him, saying, Alas, my brother. It came to pass after he had buried him that he spake to his son, saying, When I'm dead, then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying which he cried by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, shall surely come to pass. You know what happens to liars, don't you? Now you know what happens to people who believe them. It'd be wonderful to say, well, you were lied to. It's okay now. God understands. You were sincere about it. But you know, up and down this very street, there's church after church after church, filled with people who are being lied to religiously. Is it okay? You know, the men who are teaching them falsehood will bear a consequence. But there's also going to be a consequence to people who listen to the lie and believe it. This is a problem today, not just in the Old Testament. It's a problem today. We tend to think, oh, well, you know, there's good people in all these churches. Yes, there are. There's probably people like this prophet who was exemplary, wasn't he? A man of courage, a man of dedication. But he believed a lie. He believed a lie. Do you understand the danger of believing a lie? How it changes everything for you. You can't just sweep it under the rug. You can't just say, well, you were ignorant. And ignorance is sort of bliss. Ignorance isn't bliss. It isn't bliss when you invest your money. It isn't bliss when the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with you. And it isn't bliss when the military gets the wrong information. It's not bliss. We don't believe it anywhere else. But somehow we get to religion and we think it's okay to believe a lie. Well, how on earth is it possible to be sure, to be certain that I'm not believing a lie? Acts 17 and verse 11. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the Scriptures daily whether these things were so. Now, when you read in the Bible of something that the Bible condemns, don't let anybody tell you that it's not condemned. And when you search your Bible and you can't find authority for something, don't allow anybody to stick it in. Those are lies. And you're placing your soul in jeopardy. So when you know the truth, don't let anybody dissuade you from it. And if you don't know the truth, you better start reading the book. You better start talking to people, asking them, investigating a little bit. These people did. They tried hard to find out what the truth was. Notice another passage in Proverbs 11 and verse 9. An hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. You know, it's by that lying hypocrite that I'll be destroyed. The only thing that can save me is knowledge. Learning a bit more. In Romans 10, in the first 4 verses, brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. Not according to what? Knowledge. Don't go through life as a moron. Open your eyes, open your mind, open the book, and be careful where you tread. Because that lie could bring serious consequences. He says, they being ignorant of God's righteousness. Why? Why are they ignorant? They were willingly ignorant. They believed lies. And going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. For Christ is the end of the law to everyone that believeth. In Colossians 3 and verse 9, lie not to one another, seeing you put off the old man with his deeds. But the fellow who told him this lie was a prophet. Yeah. How many people have seemed so sincere to you and either knowingly or unknowingly told you a lie? And that lie will destroy you. In Ephesians 4 and verse 25, wherefore putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Well, it's a simple lesson. But on the basis of this lesson, so many folks up and down your street, here in our city, are destroyed. You know, there's a constant lie that people believe. And that lie is they believe there's a lot of time left. That you can just, I've got my life before me. There's years to come where I can obey the gospel. You don't need to do anything now. There's no urgency. That's a lie. The Philippian jailer knew it. And so at the same hour of the night, he was baptized. The Ethiopian eunuch knew it. He said, see, here's water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? Let's do this now. Are you accepting that lie that continually is told? Well, time is running out. Let's look at one last passage and then I'll hush this morning. This is over in the book of Matthew. Chapter 7, verse 21. Sermon on the Mount. The Lord warns, not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Why was this young, valiant prophet condemned? You remember what God said to him? You didn't do what I told you to do. He believed a lie. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? This man did a lot of them, didn't he? What a man of courage. But he failed. Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Study your Bible. Bring your life into harmony with that, and don't be afraid not to deviate from it. If you're here this morning, do you realize the lie that's being told you, whispering to you? There's time yet. There's no rush. Come while we stand and sing.